guys, this is Stormmouse03,
And I'm Praetorian.
and this is the second episode of Ramblings of Mad People, or as some folks have lovingly called it, Romp.
Romp.
Thank you, L1, for pointing that out. So,
That was completely unintentional.
it was completely unintentional, but, I don't know, we have a romp, I guess.
Yeah, we'll have a romp through madness and video games.
Yeah, and it's possible we're going to be a little, slightly madder tonight than normal.
Just a little.
We're both
yeah.
perhaps a little loopy. But we have some stuff to talk about. So
We do indeed.
We're going to talk about the stuff and things and stuff. So, it's been a couple weeks actually since we recorded that other one, even though
Yeah.
the first one only went live a couple days ago.
Well, hopefully we can catch up and
Right.
make it so this comes out within
Weekly.
a week.
Yeah.
of that one
Because
going up.
I don't know, the first one it just took me a little bit to get it edited and put over some footage and whatnot, and I wasn't sure what I was going to put behind it, and I ended up just like throwing The Witcher, some of my dark difficulty stuff. Dark difficulty? It's Death March difficulty.
Yeah,
on
but it
Witcher
was
3.
dark on The Witcher
I know,
2.
I know,
So
and
it's
so
an
I
easy
always
mistake
just
to make.
refer to it as dark. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I just decided to throw that up behind it in the end. Anyway, games. We've played some games.
We have played some games and completed some games.
We have both completed some games. Some more than others over the
Yeah.
past couple of weeks. And so we can talk about them. So we can kind of maybe stagger here, and maybe you talk
Yes.
about one that you did, I talk about one that I did, and we'll do it kind of
Yeah,
like that.
definitely. We can also just kind of introduce the ones that we've
Sure, yeah.
done.
The ones that we've played, I've played Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor and Sleeping Dogs, and I've barely started Assassin's Creed Chronicles China.
hmm And I've played Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, Metro 2033, and finally got round to diving into Dark Souls
hmm
because I ran out of other things to play. And I've finished the single player on Portal 2, but I won't be talking about that now because I'd like to get the co-op done, and then I can have a concise idea of how good the game is with playing both sides of it.
Right. So you'll be talking about Metal Gear, Metro, and Dark Souls, and I'll be talking about Shadow of Mordor and Sleeping Dogs.
Yes.
So here we go. Which one would you like to talk about first?
I'll talk about Metal Gear first.
All right.
It
So
was Games with Gold, so I got it for free and decided to play it because it looked like it might be fun. It had really good stealth mechanics. I liked sneaking around and trying not to be detected by the guards, and then being detected by the guards and having like a small window of opportunity to either take them down or tranquilize them before they set the alarms off. So that was fun.
right.
But other than that, I don't think I really had that much fun with that game. I think the sheer fact of it was it felt like a demo more than a full game to
Yeah.
me, because it felt like it was like a staging post for Phantom Pain, which has just come out, and it was basically set in one area, and each of the
Yeah.
missions took place in that area, and you'd start in a slightly different spot. Basically, you would have different things to do, like one of them would be take out anti-aircraft turrets, others would be extract prisoners, another one was you had to go in and extract somebody in a helicopter and have a big gunfight, which was fun. And then they had the Raiden bonus level, which was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That one was
Right.
fun
Yeah,
because
that
it had
one was
very
interesting.
few enemies. The trouble I also had with it was the challenges. To actually get them to unlock, you had to play the level through first. So, like, the easy challenges, you'd unlock by playing easy. And then, to get them all to unlock, you'd have to go and do that level again on easy, doing one of the challenges, which was to tag every enemy on the map, so you weren't able to kill any of them. And you didn't want to get seen because it would set off an alarm, and then more enemies would spawn in because they'd bring in reinforcements. And then you'd have to play the game through again on hard to unlock the ability to do the hard challenges, and then to unlock all of them, the easiest one to do was just to play it through on hard again. So it felt like you were playing each of the levels 4 times, and then each of the levels is very similar because it's in the same place again. So you've effectively
Right.
played through the same level about 20 times by the time you finished. It was,
Right. Which feels
it
a
was
little repetitive if you're doing it all back to back to back to back, like we
me,
always do.
yeah, because we don't like having uncompleted games if we can help it.
Right. And so I think that was your biggest problem. I remember you also didn't like the shooting mechanics
The
really
shooting
either.
mechanics, some of the weapons were fine, like the machine guns and rocket launchers and such, but the trank gun, for me, attempting to take people out at range, I know it's a pistol and it's probably not meant to be used at longer ranges, but trying to headshot people and then running out of ammunition because you missed them about 25 times in a row. Maybe it's just me being terrible at aiming. You'd think after a while within the game that
It's
you would
possible.
improve, and it didn't
It's
seem to.
possible.
So yeah, that was Metal Gear for me. It was fun enough that I wouldn't give it a bad rating. But also maybe because I've never played the franchise before, it wasn't the best one to try and start from because you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played any other Metal Gears either. That was the first one that I'd played. And my assessment was probably similar to yours. I think the stealth mechanics were definitely very good. The gunplay mechanics were weaker. I don't know that I had as much of a problem, but it's been a while since I played it. So I think it's been a little over a year since I played it. So I could not be remembering how much frustration I had with the guns. I do remember that mission where you were in the helicopter and you were trying to trank everybody was just stupid. Like
The
that
trouble
was
with
just
that one was
stupid.
it wasn't using the trank pistol, it was using like the stun pistol,
Uh huh.
and trying to aim with that thing in a moving helicopter is just terrible.
It was
You didn't
terrible.
have to stun everybody, but there was like some guy in a helicopter that you needed to stun because you weren't allowed to kill anyone for an achievement. Which I guess comes back to the fact that we do these things for achievements to try and increase our gamer score and completions and stuff. So maybe other people would have had more fun just shooting everybody in that level rather than us attempting to knock them all out.
Yeah, but I mean, I think a lot of people try to do the achievements, and when things are as frustrating as that, it just feels like the mechanics don't work well enough. And whenever it feels like you're failing at something because the mechanics don't work well enough, that makes you frustrated, whether you're going for the achievement or not. You know,
That's true.
just trying to play through it. So yeah, and we kind of talked about this a little before, just the two of us, but I was saying sometimes I get a little bit of like Stockholm syndrome with
Mm-hmm.
things where if I am forced to play it a bunch of times, I start to like it more than maybe I should. Initially. And so, since I had to play through the level a bajillion times, like I knew the map really well, and I started to like it a little bit more. And I don't know, like there's something to be said about, and it could have been that it came at a time when, you have all these huge open worlds and it just takes forever to get anywhere and do anything. And it was a nice small little area, it was a decent size, but it was a smallish area that you could get around pretty quickly and you could know like what you were doing in it pretty quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that appealed to me at that time for some reason, but in any case, I would say, would you say it's sort of a net positive experience overall, especially
Yeah,
having gotten it for free?
I would say I'd give it 6, 7 out of 10. It's not
Yeah,
a terrible game, but
yeah.
it's not the
Well,
best
it's
game
not
in
a
the
full
world.
game.
It's not. It's a
I
demo.
mean, it was not even released as a full game. It was released as a half price game. So, but I mean, even for $30, when you think about that versus like the value that you get out of something like Resident Evil Revelations 2 that was $30 as well.
Yeah.
Or Life is Strange, which was what, 20 total. Um
Yeah, about £15.
and so when you think about like what you got out of Ground Zeroes versus those experiences, like there's no comparison. It is a
There really is.
glorified demo. So in any case, that was Metal Gear. Did you have any final stuff on that?
Um, no, I guess I don't. I guess if you like the series, you'll probably like that game because you'll be more au fait with the mechanics. So maybe you're used to the weapon mechanics more than I was.
Maybe you're used to the weapon mechanics being terrible, and this is a step up from the terribleness of the past. Who knows?
Who knows?
All right. So moving along, I would say swiftly,
Yes.
but we're 11 minutes into this. So moving along at our rambling pace.
Yeah.
Middle Earth Shadow of Mordor. I finished. I know I talked about this a little bit, my first impressions of it, on the last one. And but now I have completed it, and I completed all the DLC as well. And so I think overall I really really enjoyed this game. I think that this is one that most anybody would probably like, especially if you're a Lord of the Rings fan. Um I do still hold to my opinion that I had at first, that I think the just general path of the gameplay is a little bit wrong, for me, because like it's a little bit poorly constructed, because there's an overall decline in difficulty as you play through it. So it's at the beginning it is the most difficult that it will ever be for you, I think. And then as you level up and gain powers and whatnot, it declines pretty steeply to the point where, you know, at the end you're just smashing through hordes of everything. And while there is something to be said for making you feel like you're more powerful as you go along, I feel like the difficulty curve should kind of start at a nice low point, ramp up a little bit, and maybe then decline to the point where you feel like you're powerful and you're, you know, just destroying everything and whatnot. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I feel like having it start really hard and then become really easy is sort of opposite to the way that it kind of should be. So, and I'm doing lots of hand motions that no one can see, but you know.
Me.
Um,
I think
that's that's kind of my thought on that.
I think the possibility of them doing that might have been to get you into the Nemesis system early, so that
Yeah,
you die a lot at the start, and then, oh look, the war chiefs have rearranged because you died, and make you understand what the Nemesis system does. I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but that might be why they made it difficult at the start, and
sure.
also because they want you to. I know you don't like it, but they may have wanted more of a challenge at the start so that you don't plow through the game too quickly, because they didn't make it particularly long.
That's true. The campaign could have used some fleshing out. It really could have. It felt like there was not quite enough story there. Um, but what was there was good. Um, and I think that you're probably right. They did it like that on purpose, obviously, for a few reasons. And I can see where maybe they're like, oh yeah, if they die at the beginning, they'll understand that, like, oh, the time progresses and these chieftains do whatever. But they could have done that by having like a scripted death or something,
Hmm.
through the story, and then it kind of shows you, so that it's not the actual gameplay that's making it frustrating at the beginning. It's like, oh, we're gonna do this, and you sort of have to die in this section, or maybe you have to die a couple of times in this section, and it shows you the system. I just feel like it could have been better executed. Um,
That's
and
fair
the
enough.
areas, or at least some of the areas at the start, could have been less heavily populated. Um, that's just my opinion, but there it is. Um, But other than that, most everything about the game I really enjoyed. I thought it had really good gameplay. The powers, once you got them, were very good. I really liked the executions, like the slow motion chopping off of an orc's head was satisfying every single time you did it, which was a lot of times.
And also making people's heads explode when you did the charge attack.
Yeah.
That hits them about 17 times and then their head just goes boom.
Yeah. The powers were very good. I wish that you had a little bit more like crowd control abilities. Like once you got the ground slam, that helped a lot. But I would have liked to.
You still had to charge it for it to be able to affect a large group of people.
You did, and you had to keep your combo up.
Yeah, you have to keep that combo going. When you get the ability that enables you to take a hit, that helps, but you can still get overwhelmed.
Right, and the point being is that so many of those are so far down in the tiers that you have to play through so much of it before you get a lot of those useful abilities.
Or you go off and farm captains for a bit. Yeah. Is the other way that you could do it.
I know, like I had fully upgraded before I think I was even halfway through the main story mission because I was just doing a lot of the side stuff and a lot of those survival challenges and the weapon challenges and the rescue people stuff. I mean, so it's not like you can't missions. Level up and that it was super stingy with XP and you wouldn't be able to have those abilities by the end of the game. And yet, they were still really far down the tiers. And so they could have had more abilities and had more tiers and just, you got some of the more basic ones like the ground pound. Like, I got that ground pound so late. Or it felt like it was so late. Because it doesn't unlock
until a certain story mission.
Yeah. And so basically I was going through a bunch of the stuff at the beginning and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why don't I have a crowd control ability? And it's because you don't get it until you play that story mission, which okay, fair enough. They want you to play the story.
End of the first area though.
It was, I think. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to stop complaining because I really did like this game. Like, I'm really just, like, harping on one negative thing, but there's really a lot of good stuff about the game that I want to talk about and not make it sound like I hated the game because I definitely did not. I did like the Nemesis system. So that was cool. I thought that the story was interesting. I mean, if not the most original thing in the world, it was still interesting. And
it was written well enough.
Yeah, it was executed well, I think. And it was cool having the elven guy.
Oh, Celebrimbor.
And Talion,
yeah. Although you didn't play as Talion.
I used the other lady skin, which was funny. But it was Talion in all the cutscenes and stuff. So, I mean, it was his story. It's not like they replaced him.
I was only joking.
Or anything. But while I was free running around, I did use the lady skin.
Sounds like you cut it off her and you're just wearing it.
Just wearing it around. Really, I'm a man. It's really funny. So I liked the story well enough, and it was nice to be back in that Lord of the Rings universe because really I haven't been into the Lord of the Rings universe for quite a while. I haven't even seen any of the Hobbit movies or any of that kind of stuff. So it's really been since the movies, the original trilogy came out. That I've really been invested in that universe, and so it was cool to be back there and to have some of the familiar characters like Galadriel and Gollum. And I thought that the voice actresses and actors did really well since they were not they weren't the ones from the movie, but they sounded like the ones from the movies without sounding like they were mimicking them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
they sounded close enough to make
Yeah.
the comparison, but not like they were trying to be exactly the same.
Right, and it wasn't overdone, so that was good. I enjoyed both DLCs and thought that they both really added to the game.
Yeah, because
The the
one's a
hunt one,
prequel, one's a sequel, isn't it?
huh?
One's a prequel, one's a sequel. If that makes
Yes,
sense with the
that's
DLCs.
correct. The Bright Lord DLC was Celebrimbor, and it was a prequel, and it was showing you know him fighting Sauron, which was
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And so you were playing as a different character, kind of. So he had sort of different abilities to Talion, which was neat, and it helped flesh out his story, which was nice. And then the other one, the Lord of the Hunt
Yeah,
DLC, was with um, the dwarf.
Talion. Oh, yeah, the Dwarf Hunter.
The dwarf
Um,
hunter guy. Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm. We'll think
Him.
of it in a minute.
Torvin is his
Torvin.
name. And so I really liked him. I thought he was a really good character.
Yep, typical,
And
typical grumpy dwarf.
yeah. And so being able to like go out and do some more hunting stuff with him, and it also introduced a bunch of different animals, which was fun. And riding the wretched Graugs, and like eating people was really really
And
fun.
stealthy Karagats.
Yes, stealth kills with the Karagaths was also really fun. So I liked that. I liked both of them a lot. Um,
The best thing for me on that DLC was riding around on a Graug and having about 5 Karagats herding behind it and walking into a stronghold.
yeah, you really could just beast through with all of your beasts, literally beasting through
Yep.
um, those things. And so now the only thing about the DLCs that was a little bit irritating was that each one of them had one trial attached to
Yeah,
it
Trial of
for the
4.
achievements. And so you had the Test of the Wild for the Lord of the Hunt, and you had the Test of the Ring for the Bright Lord. And each one of those was something where you basically had to go through and you had to kill all 5 war chiefs and all 20 captains. So eliminate
Mm-hmm.
everybody from the board, but you had to fulfill a few specific requirements. And one of those was time. And now I believe if the time one had been removed, or made a little bit more reasonable, neither one of these things would have been too frustrating.
No, it wouldn't have been.
But
Because you have to get on the, like, upper leaderboard. And to be able to do that, you have to do it within the time period because then you don't get any score
right.
if you go over.
And so you had to do all of the requirements including the time one. And so if you didn't have the time one, or like I said, if the time one had been a little bit more
Lenient.
lenient, they would not have been as frustrating. But as it was, the Test of the Ring was an hour, and the Test of the Wild was 40 minutes. And
Mm-hmm.
that sounds like a long time, but it's not. It's not at all. You basically have to do everything perfectly and get lucky with the random generation of like where the captains are and which ones spawn where. And in the Test of the Wild one, you had to, it was basically all about branding a war chief and then doing a bunch of riots. And if the riots were in a specific location, then you could not get a Graug. And getting a Graug to be able to eat the captains was amazingly fun, but also necessary to be
Yeah, you
able
had
to
to
get
eat
it done
10
in time. You had to eat 10 as a
anyway.
requirement, but then you also really needed to be eating more than that in order to get it done in the
Mm-hmm.
amount of time that you needed to get it finished in. And
Because I
so,
remember doing the Bright Lord one and failing it because I accidentally branded the last war chief doing the ground pound attack, and it failed me by about 3 seconds.
yeah. And it becomes frustrating because it just feels like I have to do this perfectly, and nothing, and sometimes even if you do it perfectly, the game just doesn't work out such that you'll be able to do it in time. Like, you have to do it perfectly, and you have to get good RNG
Yeah.
basically, with the spawns and the location of the riots and all of that kind of stuff.
And
So
even like getting the right war chief with your first info really helped.
yeah, it did, because there was one particular war chief that was better than the others because he was sort of a tank. He could survive, but he didn't kill the other captains as quickly because you needed to kill them yourself in order
To
to
get the
get
points.
points. Because that was another part of that one. But in the end, I liked Test of the Wild more than
Test of the
Test
ring.
of the Ring. Just, I think, simply because it was just fun to eat people with the Graug.
Om nom
That
nom.
was fun. So, and it was shorter, so like 40 minutes. You kind of knew it once you were about halfway through, or maybe 30 minutes in, whether or not you were going to have enough time to do it. Although I missed it by maybe a couple of minutes several times, which was really, really frustrating. Um, but anyway, they weren't too terrible, but those time limits on those achievements, they're just not necessary. All it did was make it frustrating and make it feel like, you were just going to have to keep doing it until you got some good RNG. And
Yeah.
that kind of sucks.
As
So,
much skill as you have, if RNG doesn't like you, you're not getting that achievement done.
exactly. So, in any case, that was Shadow of Mordor. Overall, I really enjoyed it and would definitely suggest it. I would say it's at least an 8 or 9 out of 10 for me.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's a 9 for me.
yeah, for sure. Cool. So, Metro.
Metro 2033. So it's another game that was Games with Gold that I picked up. Probably wouldn't
I'm
have bought
sensing a
it
theme here
otherwise.
for this week's games.
Yeah, funny that. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was it was a fun setting. It's set in the metro system of Russia, well, around Moscow. Well, actually, it's probably Moscow and then on to Riga, which is in Latvia now. So, yeah.
It's in Russia, and
Yeah.
you and your
Eh,
geography.
I know, I'm terrible. But yes, anyway, the setting was fun. You basically are trying to carry a message from one of the metro stations to another, and you get into several different adventures and such on the way. And you'd move through like the tunnel areas, which would be your main combat areas, and then move on to stations where you'd be able to stock up on supplies and talk to people and listen to conversations and stuff. Um, I enjoyed the variety of weapons in that game as well. There was sort of you could carry like a assault rifle and a pistol at all times, but you'd switch between like a special weapon, like a shotgun, or a pneumatic weapon, which you had to pump up after using for a certain amount of time to be able to do enough damage to take out enemies. But they were good because they were silent. So if you were trying to do some of the stealthier sections and you needed to take somebody out, you could use one of those. But yeah, they had like one that fired like needles at people, and then another one that was like a pneumatic bow that could fire 6 arrows in a clip, which was quite
Hmm.
fun, and then you could go and retrieve them so you weren't using too much ammunition. There was also sections in which you'd have to use a gas mask, so you'd have to keep an eye on how many filters you had and such.
Right.
But there was also some supernatural elements to the game because there was like these dark creatures that you'd have to fight through, but they weren't necessarily bad. It depends on your point of view.
Right. Okay.
And
That's cool.
yeah, I think one of the problems I had with the game was the stealth mechanics weren't particularly optimized because
Yeah.
there'd be certain areas where it was you should be able to get through this area without killing anybody. So you feel that you should be able to stealth past everything. But I always found that I'd get towards the middle or the end of certain areas, and someone would inevitably see me for no reason, like I'm hiding in the dark behind a pillar, and somebody on the other side of the world would somehow see me and aggro everybody in the entire section, which then made it so I just tried to run past everything to get to the door at the end, which really wasn't the most fun of mechanics when you're trying not to kill anyone, so you have to basically take the damage and try and heal on the way through. And another problem was the lack of stats in that game. It just had no stat
Yeah.
tracking at all, and there were certain achievements like there was an explorer achievement for discovering sort of a certain number of areas, but looking through guides and stuff, people still don't know exactly what was needed for that achievement. So it was like, just go to all these different places and hope that the achievement unlocks before the end of the game.
Right.
Because some people made like,
That really reminds me of the Traveler, I think it was called, the Traveler achievement in Dragon Age Origins, where you had to go
yeah,
to all the different locations or whatever. And so
hmm
they had this list, but it was almost kind of like, maybe this is everything you need because it didn't track anything. So that can definitely be irritating.
and there were certain collectibles you needed to get, like they used a special type of ammunition as currency, and each of the stations had a few hidden away that you'd have to go and find. But there was no way to track which ones you had or hadn't picked up, or whether you'd picked up all the ones in the station before moving on. So you had to either follow a guide or keep a mental note of which ones you picked up and which ones you hadn't. But all in all, not actually too bad a game. I mean, it's a little bit dated graphics wise because it came out in 2010 originally,
Mm-hmm.
and having been playing a lot of the Xbox One, you can definitely see the graphical difference.
Yes. Well, one
But
would hope. Otherwise,
but
why would they come out with a new console?
but the fact is, they did make a Redux version of
Mm-hmm.
Metro 2033 in last light, and looking at some of the photos for that, that looks like a better game. And also the fact that you seem to be able to carry more weapons in that one, which helps because
Yeah.
there's kill X number of enemies with X weapon in that. So only certain weapons would be available in certain areas, and also you'd only be able to pick up certain ones from certain shops. So you'd have to know which one you'd use to make sure you get a kill with it and then swap it out for something else. So you wouldn't be able to get that one done until the end of the game. But then there's
Right.
another achievement for collecting a certain amount of ammunition as currency, so I ended up doing a couple of playthroughs because I got the ammunition one done in my first playthrough, and then the weapons one done later on.
Right. Yep. So requiring multiple playthroughs of things and just having things that weren't necessarily optimized, like the
Yeah,
stealth and the stats tracking and all that stuff, were things that were negatives for you. But overall, not too bad.
not too bad. I'd say an average game.
Cool. I have not played that one, so I can't really comment on it.
I
Um,
would be curious to see how you get on when you get round to it. The
yeah,
good thing
cause
is the DLC was cheap as well.
yeah,
It was like £2, which is ridiculously cheap because nearly every DLC is at least above £5 here.
right. So yeah, I mean, I do have that one available to me because I I I didn't download it, but I quote unquote bought it when it was free. So I will get around to it, at some point in the next century, but
Yeah.
probably
Well, you
not
have more
anytime
games to play than I
soonish.
do.
So I know I have a bit of a backlog that I'm trying to slog through,
I was looking at your
but
backlog and I've played nearly all of the games on your backlog,
yeah,
apart
you
from
you've
like
probably
two,
played nearly all of the games on my backlog in the past couple of months, so
maybe.
you know.
hmm
Anyway, my other thing that I played over the last couple weeks was Sleeping Dogs. Really, really, really good game. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought that the setting was really interesting. Hong Kong is a place that we don't really see very often represented in games. And so it was really nice to see it here. It had a nice sort of visual aesthetic to it, which was cool. Um, the melee fighting mechanics were pretty awesome. I liked them a lot. They felt honestly they felt pretty different from anything else that I've played. Um,
Hmm. And especially in that kind of genre, like Saints Row or GTA,
yeah, like
because
the
that's the
melee
kind of game
combat
it
in
felt like.
GTA sucks. Like to be blunt, the melee combat in a GTA is awful. Um, it's not fun to do. But the melee combat in this was great, which is good because it was mainly melee combat and it had a little bit of gun play to it. But the gunplay was not as good. Most of the guns, I would say, were pretty inaccurate. Like the
Yeah,
reticle on the pistol was like huge.
the size of a dinner plate.
It was. And so trying, and it's not like I couldn't hit what I was aiming for because, I mean, in sections where I needed to go back and get some points to boost my triad XP or whatever, getting headshots gives you more points. And so when I needed to go do that, you know, if I concentrated on it, I could get headshots on pretty much everybody. But it was extremely inaccurate. You know, like you'd put it on and you're like, I think if I maybe center it somewhere above their head, maybe it'll hit their head. And then pow, and nope, it hit them in the shoulder. Okay, adjust. So it was just stupid.
It
Um,
felt like you might as well have just hit them in the face with the
right.
gun rather
Yeah.
than trying to shoot them with it.
It felt like you were trying to throw guns at them and hit them in the head with it instead of shooting bullets out of the gun. So
And
not all
also,
of the guns were that inaccurate. A couple of the rifles were much better. Um, but I don't know. The gun mechanics were not as good, but the melee mechanics were very fun. Um, as
also, it seemed like there was a lack of guns in that game. Like you didn't find them particularly often.
No, and every time you died or got arrested, you lost every weapon that you had on you. So it really did not encourage you to carry around weapons. I mean, and there were perks that you could get that like there would be you could open the trunks of vehicles and there'd be a tire iron in there, so you could use that. And then there was one at the end of the police tree where you could there would be shotguns in the back of police vehicles that
Yeah.
you could unlock, but really you didn't need it. It wasn't necessary. When you needed a gun, there were guns provided for you to use, and the rest of the time you really didn't need one. So as far as the story went, I really liked the undercover cop twist to it. Or it wasn't a twist, I mean, it was set up from the beginning, but kind of in contrast to your GTAs and your Saints Rows, you aren't really a criminal. You're just sort of infiltrating the criminal world, and I thought that that was interesting, and it kind of provided this interesting dynamic because some of those people he was friends with from when he was a child, and you know some of them he had some deep-seated hatred of because of what had happened to his family. So he really did have a personal stake in it, and that kind of made it I wasn't really sure where he was going to fall toward the end of the game. So I thought that that was really cool. Um, and the only thing that I thought was weird about the story is that from the very beginning, everybody seemed to suspect that he was a cop. And it's like, that is terrible undercover work if everybody immediately suspects you to be a cop.
Very
Like,
true.
how did they know? Are they clairvoyant? Like, what in the world?
No, it's because he went to America. Obviously, everyone becomes a cop when they go to America.
Well, clearly. Well, I think that it was like people started getting arrested. And it's
I
like,
think that that was the point at which they should have been starting to
sure.
think that he was a cop, but not before that.
And I think that that's the problem with the setup of it, because if the cops really were sending someone undercover, they would be sending them undercover to get the big guys. So they wouldn't be arresting a bunch of the little minions, because that would blow his cover. Because
Yeah,
obviously if you join this gang and then all of a sudden people start getting arrested, clearly they're going to suspect something. So the cops really should not have been arresting all of those underlings like when he started, but they did, which was a little bit stupid. So that was the only part of the story that I felt like what didn't really fit and wasn't super, realistic or whatnot. But
Hmm.
in any case, I thought the story overall was good. I liked the size of the world, so I felt like it was not too big. I think sometimes these games, they're like, our map is huge. We have so many places you can go. And most of the places that you can go have like nothing to do there. So it's just big for the sake of being big. And this definitely didn't do that. It was big enough so that you felt like there was variation to the areas, and there was enough to do and whatever. But it wasn't so big that it made it unmanageable and irritating to drive from point A to point B if it was from one side of the map to the other. So
Yeah. You feel with some games, it's like, our map is 75% desert, but there's a hut in the middle of it with a chair.
right, yes, exactly. Um, also liked that there were in-game ways to reveal collectibles. So
That
you would
was
go
really
on
helpful.
a mission or on a date with someone, and you would like hack a camera, and then after that, all the cameras in the game were visible on your map, and it also denoted which ones you'd picked up and which ones you hadn't. So all the ones that you'd done before were highlighted in white, and the ones that you hadn't picked up were gray. And
Yeah.
so it was a really good way. So in contrast to Metro, where there was no
That's
stats
what I was going
tracking,
to say.
Sleeping Dogs had really, really good stats tracking and really, really
And
good
collectible tracking.
collectibles and ways to do that. I think if you're going to have collectibles in games, it's always good to have a way for the player to reveal those collectibles on the map.
Yeah.
And or at least to know which ones that they have collected. So
Hmm.
that was good. The DLC was a mixed bag for me. I really liked Nightmare in the North. It was different. It was interesting. It was a silly, fun little story where you were fighting these ghosts and supernatural
Yeah.
beings,
Yao Guai.
Yao Guai, and which look nothing like the Yao Guai in Fallout, but
Exactly. It's like, where are the bear people?
but so you're fighting Yao Guai and vampires and ghosts and things. So it was just really crazy, silly fun. But then Year of the Snake, you were fighting these like cultists who thought it was going to be the end of the world, and so they were bombing places for some reason. And you were going and trying to arrest them and whatnot. And it just felt kind of generic and boring, and
And
like you were
contrived.
doing the same thing sort of over and over. Um, so I did not particularly like that one. So like I said, DLC was a bit of a mix for me. But overall, really, really enjoyed the game. I think it's one um, that I would recommend definitely to pretty much anyone who likes that sort of open world kind of game. So that is Sleeping Dogs. And so finally,
We
we
move on to
have
Dark
Dark
Souls,
Souls.
which I finally got around to playing
Yes, you'd
after
been avoiding it for quite a long time.
several people had recommended it, saying, "No, Rob, it'll be fine."
Hmm. And so
So,
what did you've completed it, so
yeah,
you
I
followed Exonoment's guide
I did,
over on
and
Square One
completed it
Games.
in 5 days,
Yep.
which is pretty good.
So plug for
Yep. Go
for
go
that
use
guide.
that guide if you need to get through Dark Souls. It's really, really good. No, I would say out of the 3 games that I played in the last 2 weeks, Dark Souls has probably been the best out of the bag of those.
Hmm.
And yes, it was a Games with Gold game again.
Yes, it
The
was.
theme is continuing. But no, I would say I really like the setting for that game.
Hmm.
The diverse different environments that they had, like you'd go from Blight Town, which is all poisonous and dark and dingy, to like Anor Londo, which is like this bright, clean city. Analondo just felt like a completely different game
Yeah,
when you
it
get
really
there
did.
after everything else, like uh, Undeadburg, where everything's all destroyed and there's dead people everywhere, and the parish
Hmm.
and Sin's Fortress. And then you get to Analondo and it's like, wow, they can actually make clean, undestroyed places. This is awesome.
Right.
And then I also like the Souls mechanic as like XP
Hmm.
and being able to collect it from all enemies, and certain enemies gave you more. And then you could use it for everything. It was like having a currency and XP all in one, so you could
Right.
like level yourself up or buy some new equipment, get some more spells, get some pyromancies. So it was definitely more versatile than a lot of games like Destiny, for example, that has like 17 different currencies that you have to try and work out what to do with at different times.
Right.
So that was cool. And yeah, I think my only a couple of points that I didn't like about it was sometimes the frame rate drop was a little irritating.
Uh-huh.
Like
Blight
when you were in
Town. And
Blight Town,
and that
and
ladder of
and that
doom.
ladder in my least favorite location in the game.
Yep, everybody knows what
Ne-
ladder you're talking. Everybody who's played Dark Souls knows exactly what ladder you're talking about.
I know,
All you have
but
to
they
do is
didn't know
say
that
that
New
ladder.
Londo was my least favorite location. Also housing my least favorite boss.
Yes. The Four
No,
Kings
everything else in
suck.
that game, like on New Game Plus, New Game Plus Plus were fine, but those Four Kings on New Game Plus, they were just terrible.
Yep.
I'm still not entirely sure how I beat them because I'm sure they had an eighth of their health left, but I'll take it. The game just took pity on me at that point and was like, "You've done this 15 times in a row.
It's it said, "Okay, good boy.
Okay, enough's enough. Good boy, you tried.
You tried. Here you
Have a
go.
cookie."
A for effort. Move on."
Yeah, yeah. No, I put it off for a long time. I don't really know why. I think because I tried to play it before on my alternate account and somehow ended up in New Londo ruins at the
Uh-huh.
start, and everything murdered me repeatedly because I
Yep.
had no idea what I was doing. And it was
Right.
like, you're dead. The ghost killed you. And again. And again.
And you probably tried to kill them and were like, "Why aren't they dying? It doesn't even look like they're losing any health at all." Because you have to have those
Exactly.
transient curses before you can
Yep.
do any damage to them.
Yep.
So,
Definitely. No, I would say that I probably will play Dark Souls 2 at some point. Maybe when
okay.
it goes on sale.
Very cool.
Give that one a go.
And
Because I've
you
heard it's
also said
easier.
it I don't know that it I don't think that it's easier. I think that it
Mhm.
removes some of the frustrating elements. So like
Okay.
I know that you didn't like the cutting off the tail of enemies.
That mechanic did
Um
irritate me a little bit because, like, with Priscilla,
mhm.
and you try and cut her tail off, but if you fail the first time, it's very difficult to try and do it in that playthrough again because she's aggroed on you as soon as you get back into her area,
Right.
which means you can't go and stand behind her and try and use it like a pyromancy or something that does a lot of damage in a few hits to take it off.
Right. So a lot of them it felt like you kind of had one chance to do it and then if you screwed up, you'd have to play through the whole game again to get back to that
Yeah,
character. So yeah, I mean
I
and definitely I can see the frustration
and
with
I
that.
also disliked having to kill certain bosses a certain number of times to get enough souls to be able to build all the equipment to get the
Right.
Knights Honor trophy slash achievement because like you had to kill Sif about
3
three
times.
times
You needed
and
3 of
then
his souls.
yeah, so that means you had to play through to New Game Plus Plus, which maybe I probably wouldn't have done if I'd have just been playing through for fun.
Right. Well, you made
If
the
you
point that if you had been playing for fun, you might have played it a couple of times through, but you would have played with different builds, and that way
yeah,
you
so
would
I
have gotten to experience the game a little bit more and a little bit differently.
yeah, like
Instead
I
of
may have gone from the like magic build that Exonovant uses to get through quickly, which was really fun. to maybe using a dex build or a strength build so that I could get an idea of, fighting different bosses different ways. Like you were saying with the Moonlight Butterfly, that I liked it when it was in the air because I could shoot it down with spells, but you said that when you were doing your sword or strength build, you had to wait for it to come down within reach to be able to use melee damage
Yep.
on it.
Yeah.
So it gives you two different ways to fight the boss.
Yeah. And I think that to your point that if you're doing it back to back and you don't absolutely 100% love it, sometimes that can be to do with the class that you're playing. Like, I definitely found that, like, I enjoyed it as a magic build, and I think that that's definitely the way to go just to get the achievements and stuff. But I had a lot more fun playing as a melee build. And so, because I think the combat is just better. The combat is better and more fun when you're playing with weapons and hitting things with them. It just is. So, hitting something in the face with a sword is just more fun than shooting little magic crystal
I think
things.
for me playing Dark Souls, it went completely against my usual remit of I like to go in and attack stuff with melee damage to actually magic might be better because those giant things over there won't be within range of pummeling me to death in about 3 seconds.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know. I think, but to your point, like, if you could have played through, and the Knight's Honor thing was just you need to get these weapons in any playthrough that you do,
and it would tick them off,
and it ticks them
effectively
off.
on the achievement tracking.
So yeah, so you play through it once, you get all the stuff on that playthrough, then you play through a different character with a different build, and so you make other weapons or get other weapons.
And that could also move you towards different covenants and picking up different miracles in different playthroughs and not being forced to join every covenant and get them up to a certain level
Right.
to be able to get all the miracles, sorceries, pyromancies, and I'm sure there's another one.
Miracles, sorceries, pyromancies.
Or is that it?
I don't know. There were hexes in Dark Souls 2, but I don't think there were hexes, and I think miracles and hexes were kind of combined.
Yeah.
In the first one. So, gestures?
No, there wasn't an achievement for gestures in Dark Souls.
Weapons.
Oh well, I'm sure someone,
maybe.
will comment and tell us which one I missed.
So anyway, we were talking before about how Dark Souls 2 is quote unquote easier. I think that that's an unfair assessment of it because to me, they took out a lot of the things that were bullshit in the first one. That I don't see as true challenge. I see more as either mechanical failings, or it was just in there as a screw you. So like places where there's this really narrow thing that you're walking along and it's just really easy to fall off or get knocked off. There's not really much of that, if any of that I can recall in Dark Souls 2. I think that's cheap.
I think the worst place for that in Dark Souls was like Anolondo trying to get into the large building and getting shot off by the knights.
It was
not fun.
And I also didn't like the cathedral rafters. Like, that always made me just so anxious trying to get through it.
And then the invisible platforming in Seath's crystal area.
Right, yeah, there was that.
Where I got right to the end and then fell off.
Right. I mean, I don't know. They're fine design choices in theory, but to me, those things feel more like a cheap way to kill you than anything that's truly challenging, because it's like, I know if I fall off of this tiny little edge I'm gonna die. That's not a challenge. It's more of a like, I'm so nervous walking across this thing and I'm not enjoying it, and phew, thank God I don't have to walk across that again until I play through again. So
yeah.
I don't know, whatever. So they removed some of that. You don't have to cut the tail off of enemies anymore.
There isn't an achievement for getting all the weapons.
There is not an achievement for getting all the weapons. You do still have to play through New Game Plus halfway to get all the stuff.
Okay.
Unless you play a lot of PvP, which is terrible. The lag is awful. I think it's worse in Dark Souls 2, the PvP, than in Dark Souls
Hmm.
1. The lag is just ridiculous. But anyway, so you don't have to cut tails off. You don't have the problem with the frame rate drop, like you did in sections of Dark Souls 1. And all in all, it just feels like more of the, I don't know, I feel like the mechanics were a little bit better optimized. And so it might feel like the bosses are easier, but it's just because, when I get the timing right, I get the timing right. Whereas it felt like sometimes maybe in Dark Souls 1, even if you got the timing right, they still could get you somehow, or they had those grab attacks. And some of the bosses do still have grab attacks in Dark Souls 2. But I don't know, I felt like it didn't happen as often. It felt like I got wrapped up by those stupid four kings so many times in Dark Souls 1, and nothing really felt quite that bad in 2. So, to me, I would not say it was easier. I would say it's less frustrating. And that's my opinion, but there you have it. So, I think that's all of our games for this week.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I started Assassin's Creed Chronicles China. I've only gotten through the first 2 sequences of it, so there's 12, so I'm not very far along. But I'm enjoying it so far. I like the art style. I like the gameplay. It's a neat little game. So we'll see how I feel about it once I'm finished. But so far, really liking it.
Yep, and I'm thoroughly enjoying Portal 2.
Mm-hmm.
The single-player campaign was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the puzzles were fun. The comedy was great. The ending was fun.
Yep.
I can't say any more good things about it.
Yeah. So, and we'll fully talk about those 2 the next time that we record, I'm sure. What else?
So what are your plans after?
Right. So after Assassin's Creed China, we're planning on doing Army of Two Devil's Cartel, which is another Games with Gold
co-op
from a few months ago. So we're planning on playing through that. I have not played any of the Army of Two games.
No, I haven't either.
But I've always been sort of interested in the series, so we'll see how this one is.
I've heard that Devil's Cartel might not be the best one.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
I don't think it's the worst.
I've heard that probably the first one was the best.
Yeah, second one was the worst, and then Cartel is somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I think also the second one had an unobtainable achievement from the start, which was a bit weird.
Yeah, so good thing that it was Devil's Cartel that was the Games with Gold one, because the first one, the servers are down, so we couldn't play it online.
Yeah.
And the second one has unobtainables in it, which would mean we wouldn't have played it. So, or at least we wouldn't have played it on our mains. So
we'll continue. Well, we're going to start co-op for Portal as well.
Yes,
hopefully.
we will do that.
And try some speed runs in Halo.
Yes, we will do that too. And then on my own
DLC. Oh.
Yep.
You go first.
You can go ahead. Go for it.
I was just going to say I'll play the DLC for Dragon Age Inquisition that comes out next week.
Which looks really good, and I'm super jealous of you.
I know, because you have the 360 version.
I know, and it's not going to come out on the 360 version. I wish that they would have released that one on the 360 version instead of Jaws of Hakken. Like,
Jaws of Hakken was fine. It's better than the second DLC. I don't understand why they released the second DLC and then they're releasing this conclusion one within 2 or 3 weeks of it.
Yeah.
Unless it's been a month.
I don't know.
Time's gone fast.
I don't know.
Still.
Yeah, it's weird. But so you're gonna play that, and I'm interested to hear how that is, because I wish that I could play it, but I can't yet. So
I will tell you all about it.
Yes, indeed. So we'll look forward to that. Anything else coming up for you over the next week?
I was hoping to play the Deer God, but that has 4 unobtainable achievements at the moment, because that was Games with Gold on the 1. Because at the moment I'm playing Games with Gold because I can't really afford to buy any more games with pre-orders for games coming out like October, November,
Mm-hmm.
which we've talked about before. So hoping for like a good sale next week, but the sales have been poor for me the last few months.
They really
at
have.
least.
It seems like it's the same things every week, and they just rotate them
It
every
does.
couple of weeks.
Or every few months. It's definitely Rockstar's had like 3 or 4 sales in the last 6 months.
Yeah, well, Rockstar always has. It's like every 4 weeks there's a Rockstar sale. That's nothing new, but it just feels like even just the games on demand that have been on sale, it's just the same ones.
It is.
And so, I don't know. But
Just
yeah,
have to hope.
I hope so. So we'll see if there are any surprises the next time that we record this. But at the very least, you'll have played. We'll have finished Portal, Army of Two, and you'll have done the latest Inquisition DLC.
Yes.
And I plan on finishing Assassin's Creed China, and the next thing that I will be starting is Kingdoms of Amalur: The Reckoning.
That was a game I recommended. Because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
So it's one that I'd had my eye on for a little while, and it went on sale a few months ago, and the DLC had gone on sale a few months before that, and I had picked it up. So it just worked out that I was able to get it for fairly cheap. And so I'm looking forward to playing through that. I probably, if we record this in a week, I probably will not have finished that at that point, but I will hope to have done a fair chunk of it. So, because I know that that's a much longer game than some of the other recent things that I've been playing. So, so we'll just see where I'm at as far as that's concerned. So that's kind of our upcoming plans. Again, if you guys have any questions for us, if you have any topics that you want us to talk about, feel free to let us know, and we will be happy to accommodate anything within reason. Correct?
Yes, correct.
All right. So it's been fun, guys. Thanks for watching, and we will see you for our next rambling.
Indeed.
Bye.
Bye.